scores are on the doors. 48.10% of the 17 million registered voters have cast their ballots at this stage. That's a very marginal decrease on last week when it was 48.9%. Now it's worth mentioning that polls remain open in smaller towns now for less than an hour. They close at 6 p.m. and in larger towns they'll be closing at 8, so there are nearly 3 hours left of voting in those larger towns. It's worth mentioning as well that in Paris the gap between this week and last week is slightly more marked. 44% had cast their ballots at this time last week, and today it's only 41. However, as we've said, that's the kind of dropping off you do sometimes see between rounds, and with a few hours left of voting, it would be a mistake to overanalyze that. We still don't know, crucially, how those ballots have been cast.
Now, Antonia, one of the races everyone's watching is the mayor's race here in Paris. Why is this particular race so important?
Well, of course, Paris has been held by the socialists since 2001. It's an extremely prominent position in the Republic. Of course, it was once held by former President Jacques Chirac, and it's been socialist, as I say, since 2001. But that could be about to change. Going into last week's vote, there were 7 candidates. Coming out of last week's vote, only 5 remained. But there has been further shifts since then. You saw on the right a real show of unity. You saw the Conservative right and the Macronist right merging their lists, joining forces in order to block a victory for the left. And they then saw a tacit support from the far-right candidate who stepped out of the race. They insist, of course, the centre-right and the Conservative right insist that they had no collaboration with the far-right in this decision. But nevertheless, you're seeing this very strong show of unity. On the right, there is a single right-wing candidate. Meanwhile, on the left, it's been a completely different story. Both the socialist candidate Emmanuel Grégoire and the France Unbowed candidate Sophia Chikirou both qualified with drastically different scores, and there has been between the two candidates a huge amount of extremely public sparring, as neither of them has conceded the other particularly an inch. So there's been a lot of recriminations about why the right has been able to show this kind of unity and the left has not. Of course, it remains to be seen whether that divided left will lose the socialists' Paris and win it for the right.